Look, I don't think I have a number. It's a good question. I would say roughly it's probably.
Really?
Yeah. I think there was a wake-up call at LEO. It's like, okay, if we don't take the right decision, this company could disappear.
Hello and welcome to Leading Beyond the Lab. Today I have the pleasure of being joined by Christophe Bourdon. So can you tell me more about the partner and development model?
Let's start with what we do for patients. People see that, we have evolved from a very ambitious promise into something that actually is about to happen. But still, the company was losing significant amount of money. We were at EBITDA of minus 17% in 2021. And as a European, I think at the heart, there is a question of how can Europe stay relevant? The key question when I started was, okay, how can a company like LEO continue to innovate? As three main tasks. It's like, where do we go? What's the team to get there? And at what pace? The US is our largest affiliate. My conviction is the US is and will remain the primary market in medical dermatology. We've been able to get out there, get the feedback, and show the value of our product.
Final question, Christophe.
Yes.
What other shifts culturally happening, do you think, at LEO when you would compare it with what it was like previously?
I think it's a very important question. I'm not going to comment on the overall situation. I think if we step back...
So that's blown me. Hello and welcome to Leading Beyond the Lab. Today I have the pleasure of being joined by Christophe Bourdon, CEO of LEO Pharma, a global leader in dermatology, which is currently going through one of the most exciting chapters in its 100-year history. Under Christophe's leadership, LEO Pharma has achieved a number of milestones. All of these milestones have been achieved whilst preparing for a successful IPO. Pleasure to have you here, Christophe.
Delighted to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, so it's been a really exciting and busy summer for you and for LEO Pharma and everyone involved. Lots has happened.
Yes.
So could you talk to just in some detail around your reflections on those achievements?
Yes. So I think it's a beautiful story at LEO Pharma. It's as you said, more than 100 years old company coming from Denmark. And we do one thing is in 60 years, we are really laser focused on medical dermatology. We're serving more than 90 million patients across the globe. I don't think there is a single dermatologist that does not know LEO Pharma and its product. So that's very good. And that's basically carries the foundation, the established product portfolio that we have. The key question when I started was, okay, how can a company like LEO continue to innovate? Because this is what really matters. It's like, how can we stay relevant in a world where biotech companies from the US, biotech companies from China are inventing at a pace which is unprecedented? And the key question was like, I wanted to be able to show that together with the 4,000 colleagues at LEO Pharma, we could really accelerate the innovation coming out of LEO Pharma. And we ask ourselves a lot of fundamental questions. What can we do ourselves? Where do we need to partner? And this is where we have really transformed LEO Pharma and created this new innovation model. And this summer has been really important for LEO because we actually were able to transform the company by not only having the hope and the dream of innovating more, but this summer marks the landmark for the company where we went from 1 to 3 global strategic brands. A global strategic brand is basically the ultimate results coming out of R&D, and then it's a proof point that regulators acknowledge that you actually bring something meaningful to patients. Boehringer Ingelheim, they recognize that LEO Pharma, based on the ability for us to reach in a credible way dermatologists across the globe, we could be a very good owner of the assets. So now we have 3 growth drivers that I think are very meaningful for patients and very meaningful for dermatologists.
Yeah, and how do you, when Boehringer or you approached Boehringer about gaining that strategic alliance, what do you think was going through their minds when they decided to use you as their approved partner?
Good question. I think I have a lot of respect for Boehringer.
Of course.
I mean, it's a 150 years, I think, history company. If I look at the scale, it's above 25 billion euros of revenues, extremely precise in the scientific development of drugs. So I don't think they were desperate to sell the compound. I think they were just questioning themselves. Could we maximize the value of the asset by finding a different owner? And I can tell you the way we've been able to consistently show up at Boehringer Ingelheim, showing that we have a unique medical capabilities, we have unique commercial capabilities, not only in the US, but across the globe, including China and Japan. Unique capabilities also ensuring long-term, safe and reliable supply of product. This is where clearly Boehringer picked LEO Pharma as the best owner of the asset, and I'm very humbled by that decision.
Yeah, and do they quite literally compare with other dermatology pharmaceutical companies at that point?
I think from their point of view, it's not that, they picked one. They had, of course, to pick one, but I guess, yes, they compared against other companies. But, without disclosing the process at the end, I felt we were on in on this process. We came out as a very credible company, and also being able to really show that we are committed in the field of medical dermatology, not only in diseases that many companies are focusing on, but that we also committed to the medical community on the thousands of diseases where there is no other approved therapy.
Yeah, and when you transform the business under your leadership to position itself as a market leader in that space, there's been a lot of movement.
Yes.
And deployment of staff, reorganization, everything to set up fit for purpose. I'd love to know your thoughts around how you shape the business with that in mind.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if we step back, again, the company has been in medical dermatology for 60 years. Mm-hmm. And until, I would say, 20 years ago, it was really through topical that you could really bring innovation to patients for skin disease. Then came biologics. And this is where the company acknowledged that they needed to also embark into the biologics wave of innovation. It led to in-licensing of several compounds, but it also led to a more difficult financial situation for the company. So when I started, the plan was leverage the innovation with like IL-13 that we had in-licensed from AstraZeneca to drive growth. We also had to readjust the cost basis because the company was losing significant amount of money. We were at EBITDA of minus 17% in 2021. Clearly, a sense of urgency on making sure we needed to go back to profit positive situation. And that's why we went from 6,000 to 4,000 employees. Very difficult. We worked a lot with a lot of companies to ensure that all the employees that were asked to leave, were able to find a job. I think the statistics in Denmark was 98% of the employees were actually able to find a job. That's a Danish ecosystem, that was very, very good. The key question for me was, it's not only about reducing staff, it's about making sure how we will continue to innovate, what is the innovation model we're after, and how can we reshape R&D, acknowledging that certain things we are very good at, but other things we need to partner. And this is where we invented the partner and development model, and this has really helped bring LEO into the next phase of growth.
Can you tell me more about the partner and development model?
Yes.
Because from the outside in,
yes,
it appeared that you were almost divesting or reallocating for US commercial success from traditionally an in-house R&D model, so to speak.
Yes. So I think let's start with what we do for patients. Mm-hmm. We focus on medical dermatology. Medical dermatology, we're talking about thousands of diseases. Many of them actually have no approved therapy. The bet and the conviction I have was we need to do, as a mid-sized organization, we need to be better at first identifying where there is a real unmet need. If you go as a me too, if you go as a fast follower, if you go into a place where other companies with larger resources are already playing, you will not be able to win. If you identify pockets where there is high unmet need, this is what helps provider and also help payers, pay for it. Yeah. So that's step number one of the innovation strategy. The second one was, okay, how can we be smart at spotting the molecule that will make a difference in changing standard of care? So we have internal competence. We've done topicals for 60 years. I think we have some of the best CMC people in the world to do topicals. The question is, if we're not good at doing other things internally, let's partner. Mm-hmm. And so if you're clear on what kind of disease you want to play in, if you're clear on what kind of modalities or products you want to acquire to change standard of care, this is a partner and development model. This is where we are actually inviting people to say, hey, bring your idea forward, let's partner, because we are uniquely positioned to then bring the innovation to all the regulators in the world, like the FDA, EMA, Japan, and China, and so on. And now we can serve patients across the globe in 70 countries. So we want to be open to outside innovation. This is what we have done. I mean, sometimes like the Gilead partnership we signed with on the STAT6, it's a preclinical asset. And instead of sitting on it and trying to bring it, to the human development, we felt, Gilead would probably be a better owner of developing an oral in STAT6. We partner, we extract significant value out of it. And this is exactly the kind of partnerships I want to continue to pursue for the company.
So I suppose you're able to, you're enabling your business to be at the cutting edge of innovation.
Yes.
Because I suppose if I was the owner of a molecule or a biotech in a new space or part within dermatology, they're going to approach you over a mainstream big pharma, for example, that isn't completely niche with those networks and brand in derm.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it started as a pretty ambitious idea. But look, the CEO of Gilead picked LEO for the STAT6 and he wanted to partner. We partner with them. Boehringer Ingelheim saw the same thing. They were like, LEO, actually they know their stuff. We trust them being a good owner of the asset. And those are two very different but similar examples where we will play to our strengths, but we will be very diligent on how to use our resources. We cannot compete against big pharma by overspending everywhere. We need to be very diligent. And the partnership models allow us to be very pragmatic, leveraging the strengths we have, but also where we feel partnering is maximizing the value. I will not hesitate in doing this more.
And is there a rough percentage on how much of it is generated through those partnerships and how much is, for example, through search and evaluation of almost partly within in-house?
Look, I don't think I have a number. It's a good question. I would say I would say roughly it's probably half. We need to be able to constantly challenge ourselves. Do we do things internally? Do we partner? I think partnership is also sometimes allowing us to be faster, more agile. So we will learn along the way, but I'm very pleased about the 2 proof points we have generated this year.
Absolutely. I think just from your financial performance recently, it's shown that it's made a massive difference. I'd love to know when you first stepped in from Orphazyme.
Yes.
And, like you said, that LEO at the time was reporting losses and you had to do this enormous turnaround. What was your first thoughts when you went into that position?
Well, I think first, before jumping into the role, I spent a lot of time trying to understand, could I have an impact? It's one thing to start as a CEO, but you want to be there and and make a difference for the company. You want to be there and be successful in this turnaround. So in the conversation I had with the shareholders and the chairman, it was really around, okay, what does this company need? And the plan was, yes, you need to be able to grow the top line. And I came from, before Orphazyme, I spent 11 years at Amgen, and including the last 3 years driving oncology for Amgen in the US. So I had some significant experience on how to drive biologics in the US. I felt I could have an impact there. And then there was also an obvious case around the cultural transformation that the company needed to
I was going to ask about that.
Yeah. So
how has it changed, mainly?
Well, it's an humbling task, but I can tell you when I started, I live in Copenhagen, took the train, like every morning, subway train. You go through the gate, you say hello, and then you go into the canteen and you start, by looking around. And yes, people knew there were things that needed to be done. I've been really transparent along the way of what's the situation. You need to be transparent on the diagnostics, but you need to give hope. You need to give reason to believe. And over the last 3 years, I think we've made a lot of progress saying those are the tough decisions we need to make. But I spent a lot of time engaging the team or also recruiting a lot of new people saying, join us, this is how you you will have an impact within the company. So this is how I felt, immense task. I spent a lot of time strengthening the leadership team. One of my key questions is, again and again, what are we doing for patients? Are we able to really spot where there is an unmet need, a true unmet need, that is not only coming from JP Morgan conference or a banker presentation. That's why I brought in some top dermatologist KOL who have a seat at the table in the leadership team. And following this, methodically continuing the transformation.
With IPO now very much on the table and something you're looking at, what other shifts, either culturally, are happening, do you think, at LEO when you would compare it with what it was like previously?
I think the IPO is an important milestone, but it's really not something that is where we as a team are focusing or spending a lot of time. What I mean by this is what the company is focused on is once we have brought clarity on the growth trajectory, once we have brought clarity on our ability to go back to profit, once we have brought back clarity on the innovation model, what is the sustainable growth for LEO Pharma? Shareholders want a 5-year vision. Employee wants a 5-year vision. Dermatologists, we are at EADV here. They were like, okay, what's next coming out of LEO?
Yeah.
And this is what...
The expectations there now.
Exactly. And this is what's very important. This is what keeps me busy. This is what keeps me awake at night is how can we continue to grow, but also, how can we bring this innovation that will translate into growth? And this is where I think the transformation, we went from a sense of a bit like a fire brigade trying to extinguish many small fires, some were very big, into, okay, now the house is more in order. Let's start to build something more sustainable. Let's build something more long-term. And we have had since 2 years a very clear strategic framework that I'm using in every town hall. It's like 5 pillars. It has to do with growth. It has to do with innovation. It has to do with profitability. It has to do with unite as a team, what kind of culture we want to have, what kind of culture we want to build at LEO Pharma, and also leaving a legacy. Because the company is, again, 100 years old. I don't want to take decision just for next, time IPO. It's a long-term view. And across those 5 pillars, this is how we've been talking about the plan for the company. And I think this is where we feel the culture has really evolved the most, which is shifting from solving short-term problems into building more sustainable solution for the company.
And how have you seen the perception from the outside in when you go to conferences like today with the ADV? How have you seen their perception of LEO as a business change with that?
I think it started at JP Morgan last year when we signed the deal with Gilead. This is where the first time, I got some text on my phone that I didn't have until now. It's like, hey, really well done. Or little, people that 3 years ago were like, why did you take that role? Or it's very ambitious, borderline a bit crazy. And now it's like, wow, okay, it starts to look good, And as you said, Gilead plus Boehringer, people see that, we have evolved from a very ambitious promise into something that actually is about to happen. And so, the perception is changing. And it helps the model because with partnership, 2 years ago at JP Morgan, I was the one begging to meet people. And they were like, get your house in order and then, we're going to come back to you. And now I already know for next session of JP Morgan, people are sending emails saying, okay, what about this? What about that product? So, now it's more, we are on the receiving end. But I think there is no room to be arrogant or whatsoever. We still have a lot to do, a lot to prove. It's still fragile, but I'm very pleased about the last 3 years.
And how have you taken to the expansion in the US? In my experience, most companies are trying to reposition a lot of their leadership team, key decision making, in the US, re-centralizing. That's obviously a big topic for Europeans right now. It's a big one for the UK, where I'm from at the moment, with AstraZeneca, Lilly, and everyone moving away. But so I'm fascinated to know how you see that with LEO and how that affects the leadership and decision making within LEO.
I think it's a very important question. I'm not going to comment on the overall situation. I think, yes, there are more volatility, but my conviction is the US is and will remain a key, if not the primary market in medical dermatology.
Yeah.
It is going to remain a key driver of innovation for the next decade. So For us, when I started, the US was more or less like nothing. Now it's our largest affiliate. And I think we have built, thanks to the leadership of the EVP over there for Region North America, Bob Spur, we have built really, a strong medical market access commercial organization. We have BD, we have scouting, so we have all the ingredients. I think the learning also is we cannot rest on what we have done. It's a super competitive market, and we cannot underinvest. Ultimately, I think we're going to continue. I feel very focused on this one. We need to make sure that we have the US organization being able to take at the right pace, the right decision, so we can continue to drive growth coming out of the US. And just to close, I think what's important for me is we are a private company.
Yeah.
And to attract talent in the US, everyone is also looking at, US listed companies. So we need to have other arguments of how can we recruit the top talent. And this is where the partnership with Gilead or the partnership with Boehringer is like helping the marketing of the LEO brand very strongly. Because, people 3 years ago, they were like, okay, I'm coming for one brand. And now it's like, okay, I'm joining because what Christophe has actually communicated, it's becoming a reality. So we feel like a lot of people are now actually knocking on our door and wanting to join LEO Pharma, which is very important.
Yeah, it's funny with the US market. I remember with Boehringer Ingelheim, they're obviously an enormous company. You could talk to people in immunology about Boehringer and they wouldn't know who they are.
Yeah.
Because the European initial headquarters. But that's changing, and I think, and I've seen that as well, that within the American community, everyone knows Leo now.
Yeah, and I think the beautiful thing with Leo is, so our majority shareholder is a Leo Foundation, and they always kept this kind of positive thinking, I wouldn't say admiration, but they like the Leo brand. It's a good brand for them, and that's why, I feel like now they were expecting, okay, it's a good brand, show us you can become a great brand, show us that you can innovate, and this is what we are doing with them.
And you know how some companies, they try to create an edge within their team. So we had Frank from Arcutis on the podcast, and he talked about how all of the physicians in the business from CMO downwards would spend 1 day a week in clinic. Is there anything that you feel that Leo does on a human side that gives it that extra edge?
Yeah, I think, the fact that we have Jakob Thyssen, who joined the global leadership team, is about one of my first questions, like how many, we are leader in medical dermatology. My first question, like how many dermatologists we have in the company? And it took 2 weeks to get the answer. And I was like, that's not good. Because if we want to be a leader in dermatology, we need to understand how we can really bring value and benefit to the dermatologists in the world. So, and this is where now we've really strengthened the dermatologists in the company. And I expect everyone to be very clear on, that's why I go to every congress. I'm going to Fall Clinical, I'm going to AAD, I'm going to ADV. We just don't want to impose our vision of innovation to the world. When you do partner and development, you need to kind of get like constant feedback, and this is what I expect from all my leaders. This is what I expect from all the commercial, medical, and market access team. Get out there, get the feedback, and show the value of our products.
It sounds like since you've come in, you've introduced a kind of dynamism and a get up and go or injected it into the culture. Is that a fair assessment, or?
Yeah, well, I think it's yes. I think I have a lot of energy to bring. I think. It's a good question. It's good on one hand to have a very energetic CEO. I think it was very useful.
Sort of half marathon, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. It was very proud. I'm very proud of that one.
I would be.
Yeah, it's like some people who like triathlon, but like for me, it's like a big milestone. Turning 55, doing this half marathon. But probably the very energetic CEO was important at time of bringing back confidence. The house was on fire. Making the right decision, being decisive, and being there with a team. Not being out there and being out there, roll up your sleeve. And now entering this new chapter, and I'm also receiving feedback from my leadership team, which is, it's good that you have energy, but let's make sure we focus you on the right thing, and let's empower the rest of the leadership team around you. And then because if we all are energetic like you, it's going to be a bit like chaos all the time. and we don't need that. So I think this is where it's interesting as a CEO, you also need to reinvent yourself. And that's why, we have now a new head of HR, and us here in the room, you're the head of communication. Those are not shy people to tell me, Christophe, okay, good, you did this a year ago, but now you need to kind of go that direction. And that gives me even more strength and more energy.
And it's good that you can be humble in taking on that feedback. I think that's a key thing with a CEO.
Well, I think if the CEO does not listen to his team, I think that's basically the beginning of the end. You need to have conviction. I think the CEO has three main tasks. It's like, where do we go? What's the team to get there? And at what pace? How do you kind of... you need to have strong conviction on those three things. And ultimately, you are accountable for the success of the company. But my conviction is you only are good at doing this. Shaping a vision is not simply throwing something from your hat. You have an intuition, but then it needs to be built and framed with your leadership team. Same on building the best team. Do I hire and recruit only people like me that smile at every of my fantastic jokes that I do as a CEO? Or they say, you know what, Christophe, on this one, we don't see, we don't follow you, we don't understand. And this is a kind of, it's not easy all the time, but this is a kind of leadership team I'm building. And then the rest of the organization is seeing that. Because if they see that, I want to have clones around me that simply obey my orders.
Yes, people, yeah.
Yeah, and people will leave.
Yeah.
And it's an industry of talents. We are here to transform ideas into something concrete. And you need to have curious mind around, and you cannot force ideas through clones.
Yeah, and I think
that's my conviction.
It takes you out of your comfort zone as well.
Yes.
And I suppose, how does that, your role as a commercial general manager and working your way through the pharma channels there, to becoming a CEO, how has that been influenced by your commercial background?
So when I was at Amgen, the current CEO of Amgen, Bob, and Murdo, the chief commercial officer, gave me a big opportunity that really changed my life. They gave me the opportunity to run the oncology business unit for Amgen in the US. And you learn, in this role, I knew how to inspire a team. I knew how to bring product to market. What I loved about the US was not only it was important to understand what you do for patients, but it was also critical to understand the different element of the value chain.
Yeah.
And what I loved about the US is at the end, you can look at PowerPoint, but you have people behind this and engaging personally and saying, okay, can we strike a deal? How can we do, business here? Is there something we can do to help you understand what are your concerns? And I think, bringing a bit of a myself French touch into what could be perceived as a rigid, financial-driven system, I felt like a fish in an aquarium. I loved it. And what I've done at LEO, that's why I spend, probably more than a week every 2-3 months in the US, is because dermatologists want to know who I am. I'm not here to replace my head of the US, on the contrary, but it's really understanding what do we bring to customer, and showing my personal commitment to that.
And with that, what advice would you offer to aspiring CEOs who are in a role in the pharma industry right now? You said that you talked about an opportunity that was given to you. Was there a reason that was given to you that they can kind of anchor into? Were you demonstrating anything?
Advice. It's I'm only 55. I would say a couple of things. No one should force you to be a CEO. You need to want it for the right reason, and everyone has his own reason. For me, the ultimate responsibility of a CEO, what I like, is actually dealing with extremely complex problem and trying to fitting them together with one purpose, which is really creating this long-term innovation view that we have in our industry. And to do this, look, I'm not a scientist myself, but I love science. And I want to make sure that I'm clear on what I'm solving, and therefore the advice I would give is be very curious on what are you trying to solve for your patient in this industry. Science is important, but the purpose of what you want to achieve for patients, if you as a CEO own that, then you can move all the value chain in the same direction. If you don't have clarity and line of sight of what you want to solve, this is where sometimes functional leaders are taking over.
Traditionally. That feels like the same motive that you've taken into LEO in general by only really working on the cutting edge of science or different indications or modalities. And so that's kind of that's fed through probably your entire career.
Yeah, I mean, and it's not only cutting edge technology. It's really, in the case of LEO, which is interesting is I'm French-German. My mother was German, my father is French. I think at the heart, there is a question of how can Europe stay relevant?
Yeah, it's a big thing.
Yeah, and so 100 years ago, of course, there was all those pharma companies coming from Europe. Now in 2025, I think there was a wake-up call at LEO is like, okay, if we don't take the right decision, this company could disappear. And as a European, I started my career at a German company called Höchst, that then became Aventis, that became Sanofi, but the Höchst brand disappeared. And the competition from US is real. The competition from China is increasing super fast. And so if Europe doesn't get its act together, there is a chance that, innovation out of Europe could disappear. And that's for me an additional challenge, personal challenge that I love in this role is actually prove to Europe that, we can continue to innovate here. We can continue to have like bio or pharmaceutical company. It doesn't have to be giants like Sanofi, but mid-sized European companies have a role to play. And that's one of the key challenge I embarked on.
And what advice would you have for how people in that position are able to build their narrative and adapt it based on who they're talking to? So for example, if you're talking to regulators, commercial folk, KOLs, it feels like the way or the communicating of that message to these people has been a big thing within LEO because of the way that you're touching on the anchored nostalgic points, for example, about where LEO has funded academics years and years ago. I'm fascinated to feel, it feels like that's a powerful thing that you have. So I'm interested to tap into that.
I think directionally nostalgia does not move the needle.
No.
I mean, nostalgia is good to basically, okay, I have 5 minutes for you, but the pitch is what's in it for me, i.e., what are you going to bring in the future? Are you credible as a regulator, as an HCP, as a potential financial investor? What's going to be your contribution in my journey in the next 5 years? And I think this is where we have been able in the last 3 years to really shift from, okay, we are coming from there, we have a problem to solve, into, okay, we're coming from there, the problem is solved, and now this is what we're focusing on.
It's a massive transition, isn't it? I think you must be super proud.
I am super proud, and I think, it's so, I enjoy this so much, the way we show up at the booth, the way we do a net board. I have 4,000 employees that I have like so proud, sparkle in the eyes, little lions in the eyes saying, we stop looking at our shoes, we look people in their eyes and we are proud, but not arrogant. It's just like, okay, now starts really the journey on driving even more innovation.
Final question, Christophe.
Yes.
If people want to stay tuned and look at all the exciting updates from LEO Pharma and yourself, what's the best channels for them to do that?
I mean, they should engage directly with me, on LinkedIn, on my posts, following what I'm saying. And again, I'm absorbing a lot of ideas. We want to partner. We want to continue to drive innovation. So anyone has a good idea, please reach out. And, I'm very eager to continue the dialogue. It was very good. Thanks, Lawrence.
Thank you, Christophe. Thanks for joining me.
Appreciate it. Thank you.